What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my review of The Last of Us Episode 3. So I got done watching The Last of Us last night with all my friends in VR again. We all get together in VR. There's an app called Big Screen Beta. It's like a free app. Get it if you've got VR. If you haven't got VR, what the hell are you doing? Get it. But you can meet up in this virtual cinema. You can invite all your friends. You all can see each other's avatar. And then you have a huge IMAX screen and loads of different environments. And you can stream whatever you're watching from your computer directly to the VR cinema screen. And it's amazing. It's so good. So I watch this every week with all my friends, like I do with loads of other series. And we got done watching episode 3 last night. And I would say that this episode was a massive surprise, to say the least. I did not expect this episode to do what it did. I didn't expect this episode to even be the episode. And there was a moment of being a little bit confused of like, hang on a minute. There was a moment where me and my friend were laughing, saying, like, imagine if we've accidentally just switched over to a different show, and this isn't even The Last of Us, because there's a moment where you're like, are we going into the story of The Last of Us, or is this, like, going down this direction? And as soon as I started to realize, okay, we're spending this time with Bill and, I was going to say Ted, it's not fucking Ted, Frank. When I realized that we're going to stay with Bill and Frank, I was like, okay, cool, this is actually interesting, because this is different, and I like how it's playing out. And I'm interested in these characters, and I feel like I really care about what's about to happen or what could happen. And I really care about everything. Hang on a minute, I'm loving this. I really found myself really immersed and invested into Bill and Frank. And this episode was so well done on all levels. It was such a beautiful story, a story that I'm so happy has been written and changed and made for the show. It's a story about love. It's about these two characters, Bill and Frank, and their relationship and their love, and it exists. And what I loved so much is that the world of The Last of Us is so grim and depressing and awful. But this episode shows you that love still can exist amongst all that. And it does exist. And there is hope. And people are still living their lives happily. And I just really did enjoy all of that. And I really find that there was a moment before we got to spend time with Bill and Frank where Ellie and Joel come across this hole in the ground where there's like all these skeletons and they're basically dead children. Like there's a mixture of adults, but it focuses on there's like a child skeleton and there's like a bit of cloth, or I don't know exactly what it was at the time, but there's something colored, like a colored cloth, and then all of a sudden it cuts to like the past and it shows you that skeleton was this little baby, and it's really grim. Like the government was executing loads of people. No matter if you're a baby or not, they'll just execute you even if you're not infected, and it's really awful reality. And I'm glad that they showed that right before we got to spend time in this really beautiful love story between two men. And you could just see what the internet's probably saying. I haven't looked, but I can only see what's going on the internet. There's going to be so many people probably going mental about this because there's gay sex, there's gay relationships going on. It's so stupid. Like, for me, it's a beautiful story. A story is a story. I don't even care at all. I love it. I love the fact that the show has chosen to give you an hour of this really intimate gay relationship. I thought it was risky for them to do that because of how sensitive people are now. But, like, I'm so happy and thankful that they did that, and they did it so well. Like, they are making changes to the story and they're pulling it off. So I feel really confident and comfortable with this show. I feel like it's solid. And this was a huge risk, I would say. People could have completely just not liked this and be like, what the fuck is going on? This isn't The Last of Us. But it is, though. Like, this is the thing. The story in The Last of Us, the game, there is a character called Bill, and he is in a relationship with a guy called Frank. We don't see Frank, but Frank has been infected, and he hung himself. But Frank leaves a letter to Bill, basically saying, I hate you, Bill. I've never enjoyed any of your time, your company. I'm so happy to just never be with you again. It's like, look it up online. There's a full letter that you can read that's in the game. And basically, Frank hates Bill. But in this episode, they've changed it around and still kept Bill looking exactly like Bill from the games. But Frank is now included, and we get to spend time with Frank and get to know Frank. And they've changed it from a really depressing, grim story that's written in the games on a letter to actually now living out and staying with these people and seeing what their relationship was like, but actually now having a beautiful, loving relationship. And I found that to be a really amazing adaptation. I think that that's really how you do an adaptation. because Bill's just a side character. He's not an important character, really. I mean, you know, he's got a point in the game, and he's a good character in the game. I enjoy him in the game a lot. But, like, the fact that we have this backstory, and it's been like, and it's written like this, and we care so much. I cared so much about Bill and Frank. I thought they were such amazing characters. I really enjoyed spending time with them and just seeing them just in love. It's such a beautiful story, but it's so emotional and it's so sad. This episode really was like touching on many levels, but it was so sad. Like, you know, the fact that we spent all that time with these characters, with Bill and Frank, who, by the way, the actors who play them, what an amazing job. Bill is played by Nick Offerman, who I've known him for ages. I've seen him in loads of comedy stuff. He's usually a comedy actor. I haven't seen him do a serious role, I don't think. Really, really good. And Murray Bartlett, who plays Frank, first time I've seen him, I think, and amazing. Both of them, like, well done. But the emotion that they put into these roles were so realistic to me. I was sold on these characters. They felt really realistic. But like I said, it's very, very sad. Like, towards the end of this episode, well, basically the end of the episode, they've gone through so many ups and downs together. You know, the episode's sort of skipping about a few years. There's some tense moments where you feel like people are going to break in. At the moment when all the people come to try and break in and they're all getting killed, I was really worried about Frank getting killed. And that's why I loved it, because I didn't want him to get killed, because I was so worried about how upset Bill would be. And I was like, yes, this show has actually got me. This episode's got me. And that's when I knew it was just so good. But obviously towards the end, Frank gets really ill. And he says to Bill, he's like, look, I can't do this no more. This is my last day. I don't want to be alive no more, basically. And I want to just have one last good day with you. And Bill's just crying his eyes out. And it's so emotional. It's so sad. And they just plan to have a really nice day together. Frank's like, look, I want you to take me to the clothes store. Let's pick out some nice clothes. I want you to bring me home. I want you to cook me some nice food. And then later on the night, we'll have a drink, a last drink of wine. And I want you to crush up all my sleeping tablets and pour it into my drink. And Bill obviously doesn't want to do this, but then, you know, Frank asks him, well, do you love me? And Bill's like, well, yeah. And he's like, well, you have to love me the right way then. Basically, I want you to help me kill myself. Which is like, whoa, it's heavy. But Bill decides to do it. But what he decides to do is such a lovely, romantic, awful thing, but I guess it's a really beautiful thing, is basically kill himself as well and split the pills between the bottle of wine and both neck it together. And that was just a really lovely moment as well. And yeah, it's just so sad. It was really, really sad, but just an amazing episode. I'm so happy they've done it. I feel like they've nailed it. It's risky, it's risk-taking, they've done it really well, they nailed it. I feel like everyone who is behind the making of this episode should be applauded, because it was just, yeah, a really, really beautiful, solid thing to watch. I really loved it. Now, the thing that I kind of wish that they kind of included, even though I'm not bothered that much, but I wish they did include it, would be the way that Joel meets Bill in the games. And it's a really, really sick part of the game. Basically, Joel gets caught in one of Bill's traps, gets strung upside down, and then you spend the part of the game where you're upside down as Joel trying to shoot all these clickers and zombies that are all running in, and then Bill rescues him. I would have loved to have seen that in the episode. I don't really mind that it's not there, but I would have loved to have seen it. I think that they could have maybe included it as the way that Joel meets Bill instead of the meeting, because Frank's managed to contact them over a radio frequency. Even though I like that because we got Tess back again. But I don't know. I don't know how you would have done it, but I would have liked to have seen it. But that doesn't mean that that scene won't happen again. It just might. Obviously, it won't include Bill, but they might still include Joel getting strung up, and it could be part of the series still, which would be pretty cool. But that's just a little thing. Like, I don't mind it because I love this episode, but I would have liked to have seen that. Also, there was a scene right at the start where Ellie is in that, like, arcade store or whatever store it is, and she finds that Mortal Kombat arcade machine, which was a sick little throwback and Easter egg to the game. But then she drops down underneath the shop, and there's a clicker who's trapped underneath all this debris. But then she has this weird sadistic moment where she sort of crouches down and slices its head open and then decides to kill it. That's showing like a dark side to Ellie, but for those of you that played the games know that, you know, these characters aren't really good. They are good characters in this world. Everybody's just trying to survive. No one's really, I mean, there is bad people. There is actual bad people, but, you know, that's what I loved about the second game, is that Abby's just trying to survive, and Abby's just trying to, she's not a bad person, but, like, you know, everyone's just trying to live their life, and unfortunately your friends get murdered and you want to take revenge. But like, Ellie is a mass serial killer. Ellie and Joel are bad people. They murder everyone. In the games, you're murdering everyone. You're an absolute maniac. So like, I didn't mind this. I didn't mind her being like that. It just gives you a little insight into how she might become or will become. And I guess to end the whole review, it's just the end of the episode where Joel and Ellie come to Bill's house. They find a letter that's now been written to Joel instead of Frank writing it to Bill. Pretty much the same type of letter, just changed around a bit, which I did like. But also, they find basically jackpot. They get left Bill leaves them everything. They go downstairs into the basement, find walls of guns, loads of loot. They get to have a shower. They get to have food. I mean, we don't see them have food, but they obviously had food. And yeah, just a really cool way to end it. They've got loads of loot. They're off on their journey, and the the episode ends with a really amazing shot where the camera just pans back from Joel and Ellie driving off into the distance. The camera pans back and just sets you in the room where Frank and Bill are dead in bed. And I like the choice that they never decided to show you their bodies. They didn't need to. We know what's behind the camera, so I like that they just didn't go that far, but they left it with the window open and the curtains flowing. That's a proper Last of Us shot, just having that window just there. I think that's even like the home screen. When you load up Last of Us 1, it's just a window with curtains flowing. It's just sick. It's all sick. I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it. So for me, if I was to rate this episode, it's so hard to say because I loved the first episode and I loved the second episode. The first one was probably better, but the second one was still just really good. We got introduced to the clickers and stuff. But like, this episode was also amazing, but in a different way. It didn't really have that much. It had barely any action. But like, I felt a lot more in this episode. And it made me care so much about these characters that I probably wouldn't have cared about so much at all. So it's hard to say where I rate this exactly, but I loved it just as much. So for me, I would give this episode a 9 out of 10. So that's it, guys. That's my review. I hope you enjoyed this. Please let me know down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you agree with everything I said? Do you disagree? Do you like the series so far? Have you played the games? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video and this review, please drop me a like. That'd be amazing. And if you are new here, then hit the subscribe button if you want to stay updated with my videos. But that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all on the next one.